Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of StarSound Speaks. This is your host, Irlianna Samsara of StarSound Astrology. So, episode 146, part 2 of the Pluto Return of the USA. So, if you're new to the channel and have not heard podcasts before, you want to start out with episode 145, which is part 1, Pluto Return. What does this mean for the USA? And what is the Pluto archetype and what is the Capricorn archetype, where of course Pluto has been in the sign of Capricorn since about 2008, 2009. So we get into a deep discussion of that. So if you haven't listened to that, go ahead and jump over to that first. But anyway, to move on here, a little bit deeper exploration to understand, the Pluto return and what does this mean when Pluto, to little recap, when Pluto has now come back at 27 degrees, 33 minutes, it'll be exactly at that point on February 20th. That's only like 9 days out from this recording. However, it has been at 27 degrees for some time. Pluto moves very slowly and then retrogrades for half the year. So it only moves like net about 2 degrees a year. So this is a very slow burn, right? It's a generational thing. It's an outer planet. So it's bringing long, slow, deep, vast, transformative, cathartic change, purgative very much, sometimes volcanic, to the very foundations of our lives. And in this case with Capricorn, it's definitely about Mother Earth. It's society at large, politics, politicians, government, the structure of society, the structure of our civilization. When you think about it too, I mean, Capricorn being a feminine earth sign, I know we typically think, okay, Capricorn is all about, corporations, CEOs and all. And yes, it is, because it's, Saturn ruled, but Capricorn in the earth element, it's the earth element and it's cardinal earth. And it is, which represents, cardinal signs are around change and leadership and new beginnings. And the fact that it's feminine, since it's earth. Capricorn is a feminine earth, right? Feminine earth sign, earth feminine. So we are literally the earth and the divine feminine, right? These are the two of the biggest issues, how we esteem ourselves, how we hold women, how we hold ourselves as women, how we treat women, the pain body of women, the pain body of the earth. These are all things that have been coming up for us very, very loudly. And it is definitely reaching a peak now. When Pluto moves into Aquarius in 2023, that'll be a whole different chapter, which of course we'll deal with that later. But right now we are seeing the breakdown of these toxic structures that no longer serve us. Expiration date long overdue, right? And just to know that, and what I'm going to show you today is throughout history where Pluto returns have occurred in other cultures. And, it's to understand, as much as we see all this destruction and death around us, we also know that that is the doorway to renewal, right? No mud, no lotus, right? Isn't that what they say? No mud, no, the lotus springs from the mud. So we must address the mud, the good part and the toxic sludge, right? All of it, the shadow of our psyche. But then again, letting things go, letting things die and be reborn, we see throughout history where this has occurred many, many times. So I'll just give you a quick, here are some Pluto returns. This is the United States' first Pluto return, right? It takes 248 years, just to recap, to come around to the same spot it was. And so where it is now is where it was when the Declaration of Independence was signed. Well, there have been many Pluto returns throughout history. Of course, you have to be a pretty old country or empire to see that. So Roman Empire, the Roman Empire, which lasted what, like 2,000 years, they had 10 Pluto returns. So yeah, this is our first. So it gives us a sense of time, right, and distance and perspective. But Pluto returns had a huge role to play in the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. So empires often fall or completely get radically reinvented when Pluto returns happen. So in 753 BC, that's when Rome, the city of Rome, was founded. The first Pluto return for Rome happened. The Roman Republic was founded in 509 BCE, right, before the Common Era. The second Pluto return was the Punic Wars. That was around 269 BCE. And it goes on and on and on. So I'm just going to highlight a few of the more ones that we really grab our attention. The fourth Pluto return was around like 220 Common Era. And that was the end of the Severan dynasty. And that was the beginning of almost constant civil wars, as the, obviously as they got more corrupt and started to fall apart. The fifth Pluto return was 470 Common Era, and if all you history buffs know, that's when that was the end of the Roman Empire in the Western Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire still flourished for quite some time after that. The sixth Pluto return was in 717 CE, and that was the second Arab siege of Constantinople. So it was another big turning point. The ninth Pluto return was the sack of Constantinople by Latin armies, and that was in the year medieval times, 1204. That was a really turning point. That's really when the Byzantine Empire got very much weakened. And then finally in 1453, when Constantinople, which is now Istanbul, when Constantinople fell to the Ottoman Turks. And that was the beginning of the Ottoman Empire and the end of the Eastern Roman Empire, done, right, 1453. So Pluto doesn't adjust or fix things, it's just the end, right? And then what comes up, right? What is the phoenix? What is the phoenix that rises from the ashes? Well, in our culture, we have seen, obviously, when this was happening, we had slavery going on. We had, the British, the oppressive British rule and slavery, and women and indigenous peoples being routed out. And, women, didn't even have the vote. I mean, it was, a lot of things being shut out. Yes, we had this land of the free and the home of the brave. Land of the free, if you were, of a certain, white men, white European men, was very great, right? So at the same time, there is this desire for democracy and freedom. There was always also the shadow. And for so long, we never looked at that shadow, but now we are. Now that Pluto is in Capricorn at these final stages, it's like a death blow to any shadow, any suppressed pain body. All of it is now coming up to be healed and renewed. I know with the British Empire, of course, they've been around, the UK has been around for quite some time. Some people still use the chart that was in 1066, when William the Conqueror, and they have been through, obviously, if you're going to use that chart, that's a long time, right? We're talking over 1,000 years. And the 1956 Suez Canal crisis, which if you want to see what that looked like, you can go to watch The Crown on Netflix, and they show you that episode where that whole crisis occurred, where the Suez Canal in 1956, what happened there, clearly the outcome of that was that Britain had lost its power as the voice of authority as the world power. It was like the final death knell. It was the end of that influence. If you remember in history class, they used to tell us about the famous motto of the sun never sets on the British Empire, right? Because it had gone all over the world and colonized in every continent. And so that was the end of that. The sun did set. Now the UK is thriving, right? But in a whole nother way. Yes, I know we have a pandemic. But like I said, all of this external reflection, if you could say that this pandemic is this external part of a piece of it. It's representing this external reflection of what is occurring, of this it's a life-death situation. It's an opportunity to transform our lives and our consciousness. And it is definitely doing that. I have to say, a great, great book. Oh, it's on the floor. Excuse me. If you want to know more about this and all of those outer planets and the rise and fall of and the planetary cycles connected to world events, there is no other book in the world like this. It is Cosmos and Psyche. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this. Richard Tarnas, an incredible work. This book was written in, it took 30 years of research and was published in 2006, immediately became a classic. It is definitely the go-to book. This is a great book if you have some of those naysayer friends of yours who think, you know, maybe they're academicians or professors that think, oh, this is a bunch of hooey, this astrology stuff. Well, you can give them this book and you can say, you know what, you might like this book. Cosmos and Psyche, Intimations of a New World View. It is by far just phenomenal. I mean, I could read the entire, 500 pages as a quote, like it's so hard to pull a quote from. But I will pull a quote regarding Pluto here, because he talks about the outer planets. So that would be Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, because they are slow orbits and they have influenced huge social movements, right, throughout history. And he shows with exquisite detail just what that looks like and how they are related. So why is this book important? It's history seen through the archetypal lens of astrology. So the two are finally married. And by the way, and I'm going to talk about this in another podcast, there's a documentary that is coming, that is about to premiere. I think it's next week, and it's called The Changing of the Gods. You must see it. Just Google The Changing of the Gods documentary, and you can sign up. It's a 10-part series, and this is epic, and it's really connecting the dots, just like this book did. That documentary can't wait to see it. So anyway, back to Pluto. Okay, I'm going to pull up, just a second, pull up this page. Okay, here it is, page 99 of Cosmos and Psyche. This is about talking about what is Pluto associated with. Pluto is associated with the principle of elemental power, depth, and intensity. Now, of course, this is super important right now as this is being done, because right now Mercury, Venus, Mars, Mercury, right over Pluto, right? We've been grappling with this shadow. Venus went retrograde at the end of December, conjunct Pluto. So we've been really grappling. All of us have been, really forced into that underworld, whether we wanted to or not, and have had to face some deep, sometimes very uncomfortable truths, but again, for the benefit of healing. So there's always the breakdown before the breakthrough. And Pluto transits, they definitely show us that. So, and we're seeing it obviously with our Pluto return in the USA. So Pluto, that which compels, empowers, and intensifies whatever it touches, sometimes to overwhelming and catastrophic extremes, with the primordial instincts, libidinal and aggressive, destructive and regenerative, volcanic and cathartic, eliminative, transformative, ever evolving, with the biological processes of birth, sex, and death, the cycle of death and rebirth, with upheaval, breakdown, decay, and fertilization, violent purgatorial discharge of pent-up energies, purifying fire, situations of life and death extremes, power struggles, all that is titanic, potent, and massive. Pluto represents the underworld and underground in all senses: elemental, geological, instinctual, political, social, sexual, urban, criminal, mythological, demonic. It is the dark, mysterious, taboo, and often terrifying reality that lurks beneath the surface of things, beneath the ego, societal conventions, and the veneer of civilization, beneath the surface of the earth, that is periodically unleashed with destructive and transformative force. Pluto impels, burns, consumes, transfigures, resurrects. In mythic and religious terms, it is associated with all myths of descent and transformation, and with all deities of destruction and regeneration, death and rebirth: Dionysius, Hades and Persephone, Pan, Medusa, Lilith, Inanna, Isis and Osiris, the volcano goddess Pele, Quetzalcoatl, the serpent power, Kundalini, Shiva, Kali, Shakti. Whoa, right? That's Richard for you. What jumps out at me here is, the god Pan from mythology. It's like Pan was that chaos, right? Like the word pandemic and pandemonium come from this, the etymology of those words come from this god Pan, right? So, that energy of getting completely out of touch with nature. I mean, look at what happened when 2 weeks after they shut down, when we went into quarantine 2 years ago in Venice, where the cruise ships were no longer sailing through the canals, and dolphins showed up. So there's an example about, wow, here's this reconnection. Once we were forced to see, like, look at what we're missing out on. We are not connected with nature, and that the pandemic, if anything, has forced us to come in, do our shadow work, and reconnect with, hopefully, with nature, because the dolphins were showing us, look at what's available. So talk about feminine earth, right? The earth is crying out for renewal, and this disease is not at ease, that we are out of touch with our bodies, with nature, right? With the divine feminine earth and all of its creatures. So yeah, so very, very big. Anyway, I would say too that if you want to work, part of this conversation is just saying, what are remedies? What are tools and remedies that we could use to move through this scary unknown time? So deities associated, like Richard had written, Shiva, Kali, Kali Durga, Shakti, let's take a moment and look at, like, for example, Kali in the Hindu pantheon, Kali Durga, the dark mother, right? Like, dark is not scary. It's where the juice is. It's transformation. Let me show you a picture of Kali if you're not familiar with her. Hold on. Okay, I got a great picture for you. Here, Kali Durga. Now, it's a little scary. She's got this necklace full of skulls, right? And she's got this scythe in her hand, and she's just slaying, right? What is she killing? Sorry guys, it's a man's head, but it's like, get out of your head, right? Get in your heart. The fact that, I remember my teacher told us years ago, many people are afraid of Kali Durga. Now look, but she's got light, she's got this halo around her. So yeah, she's in this underworld. And I know she's kind of smiling here, so it's probably not the most, even though this part's scary, she's smiling, but she's got her eye on us. And she's not killing people, she's slaying the ego, right? Right. So, when you call in Kali Durga, man, no nonsense, in modern parlance, she'd be riding in on a Harley with a nose ring and tats and just, right? Like, all right, you mofo, we're going to you want it, you're going to get it. We're going to transform your life. So be nice. When you call in Pluto, like Shiva and all, this is transformation. This is not for the faint of heart, but there are kinder forms of the mother, that Kali Ma, the mother, you can transform, but sometimes if we're in denial, we have to have that hardcore Kali Durga, right? You just got to ride in there and get the job done. So anyway, those are suggestions for how to work with this Pluto energy, the Plutonic transformative power of Pluto. Certainly breath work, very, very powerful and dynamic, to blast forth, put Shakti, right? One of the goddesses mentioned here, Shakti. Shakti is Sanskrit for light, right? Shaktipat is when we receive this divine transmission of light. You can go into like hysterics, if you ever had those experiences. I have, and very funny stories, but I'm very cathartic and transformative. So it doesn't have to be all hard and gloom, right? Sometimes it's like that, but then it leads you right in the next moment into this outrageous ecstatic bliss. So that's what's waiting for us. So, we must embrace this, because if we don't actually, what does the Eckhart Tolle say? Evolve or die. This is what we're dealing with, right? But there is gold in them Var hills, right? So if anything, Pluto is having us look at our shadow, but we have to remember as we move through this, there is an outrageous light body consciousness waiting for us that we already are, and we are just peeling those layers off that prevent us from feeling and being that. I have to say, one of the coolest examples of Pluto and Capricorn in recent timing, talk about Remedies, the actor and producer and wonderkind philanthropist Tyler Perry. Now you probably know him. Here, let me grab some pictures here. Okay, I know most of us know Tyler Perry as those Medea movies, right? Those comedies. There's so many sequels. He's a trip. But what's really amazing about Tyler Perry is he started this film studio. Actually, it opened, oh God, 2 months before COVID, of all timings, right? But it's in Atlanta. And if you've not heard about this, he's really remarkable. You know, Tyler Perry, this is a perfect example of Pluto and Capricorn. These, you know, he was on Oprah, came to the opening, all these famous people. He has his own studio, huge. It's actually larger per square foot, if I recall correctly, when I read about this, than like the largest lots in Hollywood. So you talk about transformation. I mean, look at this thing. This is amazing. This man once was homeless and he lived in his car and he worked his way up. He got jobs in acting, you know, moved to the very top, but he never forgot his roots. When he started this film studio, it was actually this land that he developed and created the studio on it was actually a Civil War Confederate base. So you talk about transforming toxicity, right? The Confederates fighting for slavery, and he took that land and developed it into this incredible production facility. And what is really cool too is that he has taken part of this. I remember reading is that if you're homeless, he'll work with you. He takes in homeless people and gives them jobs in that production complex. So talk about reinvention. He reinvented himself. He reinvented the land upon that his studio is built on from this toxic slavery history, right? And the third thing is another level of reinvention is working with people who are homeless, because he remembers he was there and he experienced all of that, homelessness, racism, you name it, right? All of that. So imagine having to deal with institutional racism and you're homeless on top of that. And now he is reinventing lives or helping, being the space for reinvention for others. So I can't imagine a better, you know, what an incredible use. And here's this man, this talented man, this artist, and he is using all his talents to bring joy to others, to create this huge empire. I mean, it's just, you know, it's just beyond. So I just want to say, yay, shout out to Tyler Perry. God bless you, man. Hopefully one day I would love to meet you. From my mouth to God's ears, goddess's ears. But talk about, here's this, you know, embodying the divine feminine of caring and nurturing and regeneration. Wow, just amazing. So yeah, so that's what I want to say about that. And I would say too, with Remedies, you know, like gain some perspective around, you know, our shadow, you know, growing up white, you know, we have a filter and we think we don't, or we think we've penetrated some. No way, man. There's so much more work to be done. I think if we stay on our heart, we don't have to psychoanalyze any of this. We just have to stay in our heart and do our work from within in mystical velocity, and all of the toxic layers, we don't have to make them fall away. They will just automatically fall away. I would say, you know, again, you know, my wonderful book, if you know, great remedy, right? Reading Cosmos and Psyche. I would say too, I did check and it's open. If you ever have a chance to go to Washington, DC, the African American Museum of History and Culture. Oh my God. you want to talk about a new perspective and the ability to understand the past fully, things that you never knew, and use that to reinvent a new society that works for everyone. If you go back to podcast number 22 and 23 of my shows, this is going back a few years, my dear friend Holly and I, we went to Washington, D.C. on a car trip, and we went all over, and we went to that museum, and it was hands down the most incredible experience. We didn't even get to see it all, but we talk about this in episode 22 and 23, and it's called Astrologers and Cars Getting Coffee, and then Astrologers and Cars Part 2. Because we were doing the podcast at the time, it wasn't on YouTube, it was just audio. So you actually, if you YouTubers, you have to go to like iTunes, Spotify, Radio Public, one of the podcast platforms, and just look it up, episode 22 and 23. But we had some outrageous stories. You'll love the stories that Holly tells, and hopefully the ones that I've shared would inspire you. But it was really quite something. And I have to say that coming out of that museum, we want to go back to that museum. We didn't finish. We want to drive to DC again just to see the rest of that museum. It's like that, it's that important. So great remedy for Pluto and Capricorn. And hey, it's Black History Month this month, right? Sun in Aquarius, freedom, liberation. I know we're at the end of, or middle to the end of the Sun in Aquarius cycle, but that's okay. Very important this year, given that this is the month that we have our Pluto return. Indigenous peoples, supporting Indigenous peoples, buying their wares, praying for them, visiting reservations. You wouldn't believe the poverty. When I lived out west many years ago, I went and visited the Navajo and the Hopi reservations, and you have no clue. We think we do, but until you see it up close and personal, it's just mind-blowing that we actually live in the same country. Another thing that I want to share is quotes. This great Gloria Steinem, she wrote a book called Revolution from Within. So let me pull that. Okay, here we go. She wrote, this is the updated book. It was called The Ultimate Self-Help Book, a book of self-esteem. So I just thought, wow, we're now going direct with Venus and Capricorn, having gone through her initiation and in retrograde, and then now conjunct Pluto, very much all about self-esteem and reinventing and reprogramming ourselves from toxic patterns of feeling worthless. Right. And with the eclipses in the signs of hosted by Venus and Mars for the next year and a half, Taurus and Scorpio, definitely reimagining and reinventing ourselves, all of us, no matter what gender we are, wherever we are in that spectrum. Self-esteem, big issue. Anyway, I was very lucky once I had the opportunity to meet her. It was quite an amazing moment. I remember this years and years ago, and I just went up to her and I said, excuse me, Miss Steinem, and she turned around. It was like, God, and she looked at me like she was present with me. It wasn't like a celebrity who was like, sign your autograph. I didn't want her autograph. I just wanted to acknowledge her, and I said, I just want to thank you for all that you've done for us. And she just looked at me right in the eye, and she just went, well, thank you. It was just, she was just so kind and gracious, and I just couldn't she really walked her talk. Really wonder what a great woman. But what I wanted to say is I've got some quotes for you, which I'm going to share. Probably I'll do it I'll do a part 3 in the next episode. Quotes from this book that'll really rock your world. And I think that'll be great fodder for our transformation as we all walk through this incredible time together. So anyway, I'll leave it at that, and I'll save the chart for the next episode. But we have an outrageous chart that's ahead for us on February 20th. And like I said, this is the culmination of a lot of work, and we're at that tipping point, and it's very exciting to see wonder and, and invent, how do we want this to go? Where do we want to go with this transformation? So just something to take into your heart, and asking the divine for help, and all those wonderful ancestors, Shiva, Om Namah Shiva, calling forth Shiva's Pluto, right? Calling forth Pluto, help me transform my life. Help me end the things that need to end and reinvent self. So, amazing. All right, so that's all for now. I will see you next time. Thank you all for listening. This is Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, StarSoundAstrology.com. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the little bell, that little Liberty Bell notification button, and then you can get the alerts dropped right into your email. So, all right. Mwah. Thank you so much for listening. We love you all. Yay. We'll see you next time. This is Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, StarSoundAstrology.com. Thank you for listening. Bye for now.